My name is Sam Otten, and with me is Jason Book. Hey, Jason.
Hey, how you doing, Sam?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm very good.
All right, we are here to talk about Batman issue 45, which is written by Scott Snyder, art by Greg Capullo, this team which has been there since the beginning of the New 52. This is super heavy, continuing on. So issue 44 had a little bit of a sidestep, really strong issue, but this one now is continuing the main super heavy storyline. And we get a little bit of information about why it's called super heavy. They're doing some scientific work with the particle accelerator, smashing atoms together and creating these new super heavy elements that are kind of beyond the periodic table. So there's some developments there. But Jason, overall, what were your thoughts on this issue?
Well, as usual, another well done issue by Capullo and Snyder. They just always seem to get it right with Batman. I will say the cover to start, as an ex-smoker and someone with bad lungs, I know it's a candy cigarette, but I didn't like that. I saw that it looks like Batman with a cigarette. A kid could see it. I know that sounds preachy, but it seemed kind of weird to put on the cover. But anyways, the issue itself I enjoyed. I think there's a lot of hints of Bruce Wayne coming back at some point with kind of the storytelling and things they've used with the slits of Batman's eyes in there and whatnot. Great art, great storytelling, great dialogue, and a little bit more with Mr. Bloom, which was nice as well.
Yeah, Mr. Bloom is definitely here now. So, I think a lot of what this issue was doing was moving us forward to where Mr. Bloom is now fully on the scene, and we're now going to have a direct confrontation of Batman and Mr. Bloom in issue 46.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in pretty big at the end there.
Yeah.
But getting up to that ending point, you're right about Bruce. So, in the previous issue in the Super Heavy main line, we saw how Bruce has a technological way of kind of becoming Batman again with that sort of machine that can recreate Batman.
Right.
In this one now, we get a little bit of like the motivation that Bruce Wayne might have to be Batman again, where he's kind of helping out in these different ways, and he's kind of settling into this new relationship, but he feels this little urge of like, I need to be doing something else. I need to be out there fighting for the city.
Yes.
So you can kind of tell there's like that little nugget of Batman still eating away at him inside.
Yeah, it was totally well done, and I love that part with the how he used the bits from the old Batcave stuff to make like a playground for kids.
Mm-hmm.
That was super cool, and I really enjoyed it. I thought the things they were doing with Gordon and potentially being replaced as Batman kind of reminds me of stuff in the old RoboCop movies when they're like, well, you would never just be the only one. There's going to be more, and da 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 da. And it kind of the story's going where it needs to go, I think.
Yeah, there's definitely some nice development on several different fronts, with Gordon having his kind of dilemmas, Bruce getting his kind of motivation in place, and then Mr. Bloom coming out. So, they did a great job of just kind of pushing everything a little bit forward. Like, they're always good at pacing these things out and developing them. It was a really strong team.
Yeah, they always are. And what I find when I read it too, Sam, is that this is a good example of a comic that reads well as a single and as a trade. That to me is a sign of a very well done comic because they are writing with that arc in mind. You can tell this was part 5, next part 6, but it also works well as a single issue too. You don't need to know everything about it to be able to read it and enjoy it. You just need to know that Bruce Wayne isn't Batman right now, and Commissioner Gordon is, and there's a bad guy out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a good and a bad. So the bad, at the beginning of the issue, Gordon has to get out of this furnace that he was locked in back in issue 43. I thought it went a little bit beyond what I could sort of believe. When he was calling out the temperatures, I'm like, if it was really that hot, there's no insulation, imaginable that could protect a human being from those kind of temperatures.
Yeah.
But it's a comic book, so we knew he was going to get out of it somehow. And the way he got out, I thought was okay. But they should not have made it that hot because to me that took me out of my suspension of disbelief.
Right, because you know what? It's almost like a problem. I will never really say this except for in this situation. The way they designed that interior Batman suit to be not the armored suit, if that part was happening while he was in the armor, you'd be like, oh, of course, right? It's like an Iron Man suit. It's meant to withstand these kind of heats. But when they draw it just kind of like an undersuit, that he's wearing under it, it's not as believable that it's going to be able to withstand that kind of crazy heat.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that took me out of it a little bit. But one thing that I really liked in this issue as kind of a standalone issue was the interaction between Gordon and the mech suit. Like
Yes.
they actually started to be like a partnership duo or something, the two of them. And the couple scenes, like first of all when the mech
Yes.
suit comes in to save him, and then at the end when the mech suit helps him kind of boost him up and he jumps off. So I liked the interplay, and it actually made the mech suit a little bit more endearing to me than it was before.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I know you're not the hugest Marvel guy, but that is something that was always done well, especially in the films for Iron Man. When he needs stuff to come to him and he's talking to Jarvis and the suit comes to him, it works well in that medium and it works well in the comic as well, especially with the Gordon kind of, talking to him like it's his partner, right?
Yeah, and I thought it was good too because it was kind of a more of a Gordon thing for
Yeah.
Batman rather than Bruce. So it kind of gave a uniqueness to Gordon being Batman that he has that kind of interaction.
Yeah, like put his own stamp on it kind of thing.
Right. And one thing they continued here too was some of the little humor and some of the actual light coloration. Like Bruce's
Yes.
scenes are very brightly lit and
Totally.
colorful, and when he builds the playground, which I agree with you, was a nice kind of way to bring a cap onto the Endgame stuff to turn it into this playground for the kids.
Yeah.
But very bright and some humor, which they've had in this super heavy arc, and I wonder if they're doing that on purpose because it is a Gordon Batman story instead of like a Bruce Wayne darker traditional Gotham Batman story.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me almost of the coloring in the original Dark Knight Returns because when they chose Superman or like some outdoor scenes to contrast the dark Batman stuff, they always had such pops of color, and moments like that with a nice use of color or the playground, it just reminds us how good this team is because to make you kind of go, wow, this is something that hasn't been done in a Batman book is pretty cool after all these years.
And I think it'll work really well when, in a couple years when you're looking back at these different arcs, to have the dark stuff with the Court of Owls, the dark stuff with Endgame,
yeah.
Batman goes way down into the depths of
Yeah.
the earth for Endgame. And then when Bruce Wayne is relieved of all the pain and the burden of Batman, it'll be this burst of color, in this, mid 2015 to fall 2015. So I think even if you were looking at like a palette of Batman over these 3 or 4 years, I think
Yeah.
it'll actually match the sort of emotional state of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, just talking about this a lot, I feel bad for whoever follows Scott Snyder on Batman because really, we're in the middle of it and we're not realizing, like, we know how good it is, but it'll be one of those runs, I think, that we'll look back on and be like, this is one of the best Batman runs, quality-wise, consistency-wise, we've probably ever seen.
Yeah. So speaking of that, there's a video from New York Comic Con where Comic Vine was interviewing Snyder and Capullo.
Yep.
And Capullo is going to take some time off the Batman title
Yep.
starting around issue 51. So they have
Yes.
something big planned for 50. It might be like the conclusion to Super Heavy or something, I'm not sure. But then Capullo said he's going to go off with Mark Millar and is going to do a little project. He made it sound like then after that project he was going to come back to Batman with Scott Snyder. But you kind of wonder, once his contract's up and then he's going over with Mark Millar, I wonder if it's really certain that he will come back to Batman or if Scott Snyder has said is going to be continuing on Batman after 51.
Yeah, which is good there too, because Snyder, we've seen there's been some annuals and other issues where Capullo wasn't drawing it that has worked just as well. So if they're smart, which I think we know they are with Batman, they're going to make the storyline come to a big kind of end for 50, and then continue on to something a little different that will match somebody else's art style. And then Capullo, to me, I don't think he won't come back. I mean, this is art. It's always a huge seller. They can probably, negotiate for a bit more money if they wanted to, because I think they deserve it. They're always doing a bang up job, and I wouldn't be surprised if all things go well. They do this for a long, long time, because as long as they're having fun doing it too, right? Why wouldn't you want to?
Yeah. So in the meantime, we can look forward to issue number 46. So Mr. Bloom has definitely arrived now, so we'll have to see how that plays out. And I'm curious about these elements and how they're going to play into the story as well. So
Yeah.
a lot more to look forward to.
Yeah, and just a small mention at the end too, the creep factor of him, the way he killed those two guards and things like that in the issue were really well done, because we've seen him just bits and pieces, but he felt like more of an actual kind of menacing villain here now, and I'm excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, definitely. All right, thanks.
Okay, talk to you later.